Welcome to Clinical Cousins YouTube channel. This is part 2 of our blood transfusion reactions video. The last one went over types. We talked a little bit about the different types of antibody production. At the end of the last video, I did talk about an IgM and IgG antibody that's produced by different blood types. That's for rhesus factor, so someone's Rh negative. So first off in the video, we're going to talk about being Rh negative, why we give Rhogam, those types of reactions, because those can lead to things like idiopathic thrombocytopenia and a host of other problems. It's one of the reasons at 28 weeks we give Rhogam. Maybe someone had a miscarriage, we give Rhogam. We'll discuss that so we understand how that reaction occurs. Next part of the video, we're going to talk about blood compatibility reactions. And we'll talk about IgA deficiency and the type of blood transfusion reactions those cause, how to note the difference, and we'll also go into if people get leukocyte rich blood, that maybe there's a lot of cytokines in the bag, type of reaction that causes, and they can all vary in severity. So I would say the leukocyte rich blood would probably be the least severe of the reactions you can have. So again, picking up where we dropped off last, we're going to talk about the blood types. We have type A, type B, type AB, and type O. And we're going to assume all these are rhesus negative blood types. So what type of antibody will A and B, AB together, and O make in response to coming in contact with someone with Rh positive blood? Well, in the case of A and B, they'll make IgMs type antibodies, which are bigger antibodies. So we'll just make those bigger. That is not how they look. They look more like this. All right, and AB, also same thing. If they get exposed to Rh positive blood, they're going to make these large IgM type antibodies, which are going to have a harder time crossing into fetal, getting into the fetal circulation. And last off, if O negative blood is exposed, or a person with O negative blood is exposed to Rh positive blood, they'll produce IgG antibodies, which will draw it as these little antibodies here, or they're just singular antibodies like that. So these smaller antibodies obviously could have an easier time passing into fetal circulation, and that's where we can get problems with the baby getting hemolytic anemia while in the womb, as the mother's antibodies can start attacking the fetal blood, causing that blood to break open, lyse, and causing a hemolytic anemia there. So how do we build these antibodies? Well, first off, the person has to be exposed to rhesus positive or rhesus D or Rh negative. A person has to be exposed to Rh positive blood. And what happens is, let's say the mother's giving birth and the mother's around 40 weeks, and as the baby comes out, there's small little placental tears, and a little bit of the baby's circulating blood can get in, even as little as 5 to 10 milliliters of blood can get into the maternal circulation. Well, at first, this isn't a big problem with the first pregnancy, because if we remember from previous discussions on antibodies, it takes a few weeks to build sufficient antibodies up. So nothing happens except the mother's blood becomes sensitized to Rh positive blood. So in response, if she's A or B or AB, she'll start making these IgM antibodies. So her body's now primed to say, if I ever come in contact with this type of blood again, I'll be able to fight it because the body recognized it as foreign. Now, the same thing if the mother's O neg, she's going to start pumping out IgG antibodies. And these IgG antibodies will be ready for the next time that she becomes pregnant, and they'll be ready to attack Rh positive blood if the baby happens to be born with Rh positive blood. So that's why the first time with any exposure, we don't really see a reaction, because it takes time for antibodies to be formed. So what do we do in these cases? Well, I think it was around in the 1960s. They found if they took human plasma, they could take some antibodies from it. If we remember, in the plasma is also the serum, but in the plasma we have the clotting factors. Plus we have antibodies. So they isolated the antibodies there. And what we do when we give a shot of Rhogam is human immunoglobulins, or they're human antibodies. What are these antibodies for? Well, these antibodies are antibodies against Rh positive blood. So we give this around 28 weeks is one of the first times we'll give it. We could give it in the first trimester in some cases if we felt maybe there was a chance that fetal circulation could have got into the mother's circulation. Second and third trimester, spontaneous abortions, or anytime the baby may have came out early, even in grim outcomes, we're going to look at giving Rhogam. We're also after birth, because it's when we'll have the biggest chance of having those little placental tears or blood finding its way from the fetal circulation over to the mother's circulation. We'll give Rhogam, and this immunoglobulin will attach to the site on Rh positive blood. So if any Rh positive blood gets in there, this antibody that we're injecting in, that usually floats around for I think 8 to 12 weeks, it will become attached to this and allow the immune system to kill this out, kill this red blood cell out, and to remove this Rh portion that's found on top of the red blood cell somewhere in the spleen before it even can be presented to the immune system, or to those antigen presenting cells, presenting it to the immune system to try to find its match with the B cell, so that we can get antibody production against the Rh positive blood. So it was a great technological advance. It prevented a lot of miscarriages, a lot of complications in pregnancy with Rhogam. But all Rhogam is it's an antibody made against that Rh positive blood, and it attacks the blood that may enter in before it can cause complications. So we're giving you antibodies before you made it, so that your body doesn't end up making it, doesn't become sensitized to that Rh negative, your Rh positive blood, and start making antibodies around your second pregnancy or so. You start having complications, and that's why it's important that people get Rhogam at 28 weeks if they're Rh negative, because we don't know that the baby will be negative or positive. And then usually after pregnancy, they can always check cord blood or something and find out if the baby was Rh positive. If it's positive, they need another shot. Sometimes they'll just go ahead and give them a Rhogam shot again if they're already Rh negative, to prevent future complications in pregnancy and reduce the risk of antibody production that would have the mother's own blood supply attacking the baby, which can lead to the condition, especially in those O types where you have IgG that can pass over, erythroblastosis fetalis, which is where the baby may have to get blood transfusions even at times in the womb when the baby comes out, because now it's got all these maternal antibodies that are attacking its blood of all that IgG that was able to slip in, and it's busting up those red blood cells. And busted open red blood cells, we know, have heme products in them that are toxic, that you're going to get jaundice as that breaks open, because you're going to have all that bilirubin floating around, and the liver's not got time to conjugate it to make it water soluble and then allow your body to get rid of it. That's why we put people under lights. We put them under UV light that actually causes conjugation. And conjugation is most of the time, at first, bilirubin in your body is fat soluble. So that's why it'll go out into your skin, turn you yellow, your eyes turn yellow. But as your liver does what's called conjugates it, it causes that, it changes it chemically a little bit to cause it to become water soluble. Well, now you can excrete that in your urine and get rid of it. Otherwise, that lipid soluble or fat soluble bilirubin floating around that's unconjugated, it can cause, it can pickle your brain, it can cause confusion, it causes toxicity to those neurocells. We have diseases like Crigler-Najjar's type 1 and Crigler-Najjar's type 2. Those are genetic disorders, which are problems that children or you can be born with that are cause problems with your ability to conjugate bilirubin. But we're talking about blood transfusion reaction. So the next topic on here, now that we understand why we need to give Rhogam, sort of